Is it that time already? Is it that time already? What is going on, everybody? Welcome into Alarm Fantasy Football. Howard Bender sitting beside Andrew Cooper, and I'm like, NFL Week 13. I'm looking at like waiver wire stuff, and I'm just like, I'm Coop. I'm staring at the computer screen, and I'm just like, this is a grind, dude. What a grind.
It's one of those years, man. And
whoa,
it's so funny. I've been saying it for weeks now, dude. Weeks. Then people are still hitting me up already this morning saying, "Oh, I need a tight end for my bye week." I was like, dude, where have you been, brother? We've been here, dude. We've been talking about this, planning out. And I can't wait for the same thing to happen with Dalton Schultz in the playoffs, where people are like, "Oh, man, I was planning on starting." It's like, we've been telling you, plan ahead. But either way, we're here to help you guys out if you still have questions. So get them in the chat. We'll get it figured out. Right, Howard?
We always do. We always do. My email box and messages were flooded with Jonathan Taylor owners. And, and immediately I'm like, is Zach Moss available in your league? Like, that's like the first question I respond with at all. And like some of them got back and were like, yeah, he's already owned. I'm like, okay, well then let's take a look and see what's available. But, those who have been like, no, should I pick him up? Of course you should pick them up, right? So we don't know what's going on, but I mean, listen, this is very ill-timed. 6 teams on a bye week this week kind of complicates the matter unbelievably. 6 teams on a bye, now a Jonathan Taylor injury. We're looking at other scenarios and other situations that could arise. I got to tell you, man, you're just like this. This is one of those years where we're taking haymakers left and right, and the strong survive. Love it.
And I'll tell you what, I was like, when they first expanded the schedule, I remember Roger Goodell came out and was like, "Oh, I didn't actually realize the late bye weeks would affect fantasy football." And at the time, I was like, "You didn't realize?" At the time, I was like, "Okay, whatever." But then this year, when I saw the schedule, I thought to myself, "Okay, so last year you didn't realize. This year you do not care." Like that last year you didn't realize.
Care last year.
Yeah, you didn't care but this year you're actively said, "Oh, I remember fantasy football. Screw them. We don't care about them one bit." Because I mean the 2 weeks with no bye weeks, the bye weeks coming up to playoff time. I mean, just unbelievable, man.
Absolutely unbelievable, no doubt about it. Roger Goodell was like, "Oh, man, Matthew Berry's going to NBC. He's going to be on TV. All right, you know what? Well, listen, we'll look into that schedule thing." And I didn't realize that it hurt you fantasy people. Then the deal got signed and Berry was there and he was like, yeah, screw you fantasy.
Screw it. Whatever. Nah, done. Nah, right.
Welcome to the NFL. But yeah, man, this is just a crazy time. And I mean, let's talk about, because, you probably talked about this on Lightning Round. I'm sure on Monday, on Coop's Fantasy Fiasco, you talked about, I mean, Frank Reich, the Carolina Panthers. Like, what the hell is going on with that situation? How about David Tepper coming out there and being like, we thought we were going to trade for the number 2 spot, and I was just going to take CJ Stroud. Like,
oh my God.
What in the world is going on with this organization? But I'll tell you what, Panthers plus 5.5 against Tampa Bay. That's the play this week.
Yeah, I mean, why not the bounce back, right? We've been living off that, have we not? We've been living off that one. Steelers, Raiders, like going back through time, and the numbers back it up that you bet that, right? So I'm in on that, and I'll tell you what really happened here was this: they came in, Scott Fitterer as the GM, and Frank Reich said, and brought in Deuce Staley, brought in these guys, and he said, "Hey, you know what? You get me these pieces, and we're gonna not only put together a team, but we're gonna compete this year. We're going to compete right now. So you trade away our pick, it's not going to matter. You sign Adam Thielen, who's 33 years old, it's not going to matter because we're competing now, right? That's not a guy you sign if you plan to compete later, right? You go in, you get Miles Sanders, who played with Deuce Staley. You get these pieces for us. You build us a brand new offense, and we'll compete right now." And didn't happen. And that's why he's fired. That's why it was so easy for them to fire him right now, because they said, "Hey, you know what? We're not making the playoffs. It didn't work. Now we got to reset the whole thing." So pretty crazy. And I just want to add one thing. I did mention it on Coop Scoop, is that people keep coming back to, okay, they should have taken Stroud. They should have taken Young. if you just look at those two teams, Howard, every step of the way, it was clear that the Texans were making the better moves. Going back to Laramie Tunsil, I mean, the Panthers took CJ Stroud, sorry, Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. Before that, though, they took Terrace Marshall over Nico Collins. They could have had Nico Collins. They took Jonathan Mingo over Tank Dell. They could have had Tank Dell. They paid Hayden Hurst more than Dalton Schultz got. Like the team, it's not just the one move. The team that's over there in Houston, they literally could have had that team.
Well, it's since Tepper bought the team. Tepper has been the problem this entire time. You know, they're 6 years he's on the team. They've gone through 6 head coaches. Like it's unbelievable, right? I mean, it's absolutely insane what's going on over there, and it's definitely disappointing. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here, because not only did they let Wright go, but I mean they just cleaned house. Staley's gone, Josh McCown, their QB, everybody is gone. They are 100% starting over from scratch, and that's like, this is not the time to do that. Like, that's like you're setting Bryce Young up for failure. Like, this is not a lesson to be learned or anything like that. He didn't do anything wrong. He's learning as he goes. It's like a tough situation, to be thrust into. And, listen, I mean, yes, there are developmental things that we want to see him improve on, but this situation, I mean, it's just, I feel bad for some of these youngsters who are on this team who are like stuck on these rookie contracts. It's going to be like free Jonathan Mingo. That's going to be like the battle cry for the next 2 years. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I think honestly, there's a lot of teams out there with guys like Tepper and stuff. That's what Bill Belichick's job should be next. Kind of like the Tom Coughlin, where you take these guys and the owners that meddle and stuff, and you put him in between them and the team.
Yeah.
Jim Irsay, Jerry Jones, Tepper, and just say, hey, you know what? I'll throw Mark Davis in there, right? And just say, hey, you know what? Everything that you want to do goes through me first. And everything you want to say goes through me first. And most of the time, they'll probably just say, hey, don't say that. Shut up. Like Jim Irsay, right? Take his phone away. Right? Anything you want to do or say goes through Bill Belichick first. And I guarantee you a lot less junk would come out of there.
I've handled dozens of balls.
So he needs to handle Jim Irsay's balls, man, because he's gone off the rails lately.
I mean, that's just a great concept that they should be, filtering through and doing that. I mean, it's just, it's bad, man. It's just, and again, I feel bad for the players in the situation there. As far as like fantasy goes, I don't even know what to say. I mean, you're not starting Bryce Young outside of like a super deep super flex, and you've gotten screwed with injuries. Like there's no way there. But now the question is what do they do? Are they going to leave in this system? They're not going to leave in this system. Somebody's got to run this offense. And so, I mean, do you jump ship on an Adam Thielen or, Miles Sanders, or do you stay with these guys?
So I was actually going to talk about this in the waiver section, but I'll say it now, just because, Britt's got a bunch of good picks in there too. And this one's kind of an unusual take, but whenever you get movement like this, there are certain personnel shifts. You saw it with Pat Freiermuth. He had yet to get 4 targets in the game. This week, he comes out, gets 11. The first game, no Matt Canada. That is not a mistake. So I see them not only firing the head coach, but also firing the assistant head coach, who also happens to be the running back coach. And I'm looking around at Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders, and anywhere they're out there, I'm adding them, even if I got to have both or whatever one's available, because it just creates uncertainty. What we don't know if Deuce Staley was a Miles Sanders guy, if Miles Sanders was in his doghouse, if he was the only one sticking up for Miles Sanders, and now it's going to be full on Chuba Hubbard. That uncertainty creates a possibility that we come out of this week, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys gets way more work than the other, because why does Deuce Staley go out? Why throw the baby out with the bathwater? Because everyone seems to like Deuce Staley. Right. So now that he's gone, I feel like that signifies that there's something going to change here.
It's an excellent point. Very good opportunities. Definitely be scouring that waiver wire to do that. Yeah, we'll give you like our top waiver wire picks. We'll look at the article Britt Flynn did over at fantasyalarm.com. Definitely go check that out. 100% free. 100% free. You can go check it all out from Britt, the fab suggestions, everything that you get on that. And then, of course, if you like that content, listen, if you like the content you're getting here, please be sure to, hit like right now, hit the subscribe button, and take care of that. And then get over to fantasyalarm.com and we'll, help you out over there. So we'll talk a little waiver wire action here. I want to say hi to the chat. Got some people's in here already. Josh apparently gets to make deals here. Coop, should I trade away Jonathan Taylor before any news is published, or do you think there's any chance of him playing?
Yeah, so what I've heard, and Britt Flynn, she's on top of the waiver stuff. She's on top of the injury stuff for us, does a great job. She found a tweet from a guy who said that he talked to Jonathan Taylor after the game last week, and he didn't even mention it. Then today, after talking with him and people around the team, he not only believes that the injury, that he said it's a legitimate injury that we should be worried about, and he also said that IR is on the table. So yeah, if you can trade Jonathan Taylor away to get back anything lateral or close to it, I would do it. I mean, you're going to have to deal with the blowback if something happens. And I can't imagine anybody in your league is going to trade for Jonathan Taylor without Googling his name once first, in which case, I
mean, buyer beware on that one, right?
Right.
I mean, you can't I'm not saying that you want to try to swindle people, but if you're, offering up a marquee player, you got to be the other person smart enough to be like, really? Why do you want to trade Jonathan Taylor?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, most sites even have a little blurb next to his name that say that the thumb's a question. So anybody trading for him, you have to reasonably assume that they are taking that risk.
Yeah. Kevin Tompkins hanging out. What's up, Kev? Robert Flores in the house here. Yes, Tepper is beyond a goon. How toxic is that Panthers job? I mean, of course, it's. Would you want it? Would you as a head coach? Would you be like, yeah, you know what, man? I'm totally in on this.
Right now, Howard, pick Raiders or Panthers. Go.
Who would I rather? I would rather actually coach the Raiders.
Yeah, I literally.
I mean, because I know we've seen Mark Davis. We know Mark Davis, right? I mean, he's just, Mark Davis is like, it was like when George Steinbrenner passed, you had Hal and you had Hank. And Hal was the smart one. Hank was the buffoon, right? And
right.
Who's controlling the team? Is it Hank or is it Hal? And where are you going on that? Mark Davis happens to be Hank Steinbrenner, right? So, I mean, he's kind of a buffoon, but you know what you can get from him. You know what you're expecting from him.
Exactly.
That's the thing. You have that track record. With Tepper, being a Wall Street guy, what does he know about football? What does he know about, managing a team that he's, responsible for this chaos and turnover?
Right. Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, with one of them, you get to live and hang out in Vegas, right? Sure, you have to go out to PF Chang's with Simple Jack once a week, right?
You're so ugly, you could be a modern art masterpiece.
But the other 6 days, you can do anything you want, man. You know what I mean? Other 6 days, you do anything you want. So I actually I feel like that's a tiebreaker for me,
You make me happy.
I've seen it in my head movies.
All right, Jackson Schofield hit here. Who would you rather have rest of the season, Garrett Wilson or Devon Achane? So I don't know. What's the latest you've heard on Achane health-wise? Because I haven't really heard anything, important about it yet. But
I don't understand the nature of so that's the problem. Is I don't understand the nature of this injury. It was supposed to be a sprain, but they said he landed on his knee, which is, that's it aggravates like a bruise or something. I mean, landing on your knee aggravates it to the point where you got to miss another game. It doesn't seem like that's how that injury works. I was very confused by the wording on what he said, because that made me implied that he would just be right back next game, but then he wasn't. So I am a little worried about Achane. It's just I don't know. It's very strange. Garrett Wilson, of course, again, he's now in the same category. Jamar Chase just fell into his bucket, which is we know this guy's talented. We know that with any amount of space and just the minimal amount of ability to get him the ball, he can make things happen. But do we even get that?
Are you asking me? I feel like you just gave me the roundabout kind
on
of
on both questions. On
here's
both
what's
questions,
going on with both of these guys, Bender. So you pick out of this crap show.
notice
of
how
who
on the
will do.
previous question I also threw it back to you. You asked me if I want to coach this.
Man, I'm getting hoodwinked
You got to
here.
work today. You got to work today, dude.
All right, man. Well, I listen. You know what? I will say Garrett Wilson. I'd rather have Garrett Wilson because I don't know. There like Coop said, there's a lot of uncertainty about the injury with Achane and what they're gonna do, and you've got a healthy Raheem Mostert there right now. So, I mean, it affords you the luxury of being able to just kind of wait and see what happens with Achane. With Garrett Wilson, he's he's gonna get the targets. I mean, how many they are and what kind of quality they are up in the air. But I'd rather know that like this is the guy who's on the field right now playing. And, maybe this whole like as goofy as it is to say, maybe this whole like Tommy DeVito helping inspire the Giants can rub off on Tim Boyle helping inspire the Jets in some fashion that it just doesn't look like a complete shit show. And you're just like, forget these guys. Like at least Tommy DeVito, they've got this now, which is like their little
Right.
their little gesture when he does something good. And like so, it's kind of that. I'm like, you hope for that, but at least Wilson is on the field and seeing the target. So that's where I go.
Yeah, to your Tommy DeVito point, though, there's a piece of news I wanted to bring up. Somebody was talking to Jalen Hyatt about Tommy DeVito, and they were like, well, what's the deal? And he's like, well, this guy is so confident. He like gets everyone rallying around him. But then he threw in there, he goes, he doesn't even throw warm-up passes before games. He just goes out there and chucks it. And the reporter was like, I'm sorry, what did you say? Right. So snuck that in there. He doesn't warm up. So I went on Twitter and I searched it. And there was only 2 tweets that talk about this. One from that person saying, oh, yeah, Jalen Hyatt just told us that this guy doesn't warm up. And another one from 2019. Some guy at a Syracuse game goes, I'm out here before the game. And Tommy DeVito just hanging out, talking, chatting with the teammates. He has not thrown a pass. He didn't throw a pass the entire time. So this guy don't warm up, dude. He doesn't warm up. What is with that?
I don't know. I honestly, maybe he understands that he's got a certain number of throws in his arm, right, per day. So
that would be the most Tommy DeVito thing to be like, I don't want to waste the good ones. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Don't want to waste the good ones, dude. That's crazy to me.
Hal wants to know who's starting at QB for New England. Is PJ Walker starting? Yeah, I think PJ Walker could be starting. I think that there's something. I mean, obviously, there's not a lot to love about Dorian Thompson-Robinson's game. PJ Walker, you know that there's, what the floor is. So, I mean, I guess, he'd be interesting. I don't know about the Bailey Zappi, Mac Jones. Are they just gonna keep sharing the load? Guys in and out with everybody's confidence.
It's honestly it's like hilarious. It's like they're trying their hardest to just embarrass Mac Jones every time. Like they won't just bench him and just let him sit on the side in the hoodie. They're like, go out there now, sit over there. Like go out there and embarrass yourself so that we can bench you again. How many times has he been benched, dude? How has there ever been a quarterback
is that like 3 times already this
3
season?
Yeah, so it's like I don't think I've ever seen that mid-game benching and they're like, all right, one more time, right? It's like the Tank Commanders, bro. It's crazy, dude. It's crazy.
Brutal situation. All right, we'll get back to the chat in a little bit, some of the NFL news and notes, but want to again shout out Britt Flynn's waiver wire article over at fantasyalarm.com, and Coop and I are going to run through right now our top 3 waiver wire claims at each position, and I'll rattle them off, and Coop will give you which one he likes the most out of the crew. We start off at the quarterback position here, Coop. Gardner Minshew, Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, so with this one, Derek Carr is, the most trustworthy, but with all the injuries, I'm not sure I can go there, man. I look through these ones. Britt makes a good point for all three in the article, so make sure you check that out. But Baker Mayfield is the one where I sit back and I say, over the last 5 weeks or so, what exactly have you gotten from Baker Mayfield that you wouldn't get from like a Justin Herbert, right? Like he's coming out, he's thrown at least 2 touchdowns in 4 out of the last 5. He's averaging 250 yards, right? And if you're got a bye week this week, I know there's a lot of people that, were starting Lamar Jackson or starting Josh Allen. Why wouldn't you want to start him against the Panthers? So for me, I look at Baker and say, you know what? As long as Mike Evans is healthy, as long as Chris Godwin's there, Baker can get it done.
All right. I love it. Let's look at the running back position. Top 3 waiver wire running backs. These aren't even the ones from the article. Let me pull the ones from the article here. Boom. Ty Chandler, Ezekiel Elliott. Is that the Cowboys homer and Britt coming out? I don't know.
Out.
And then Jeff Wilson. Give you a little honorable mention to, obviously Zach Moss if he's available. That's the must, but there you go. I'll give you those options there. Ty Chandler, Ezekiel Elliott, Jeff Wilson.
Yeah. So that's we don't need to talk about Zach Moss beyond. I'll even throw in, I personally am trying to add him defensively to prevent other people from getting him. Like, just even if I'm not going to use him, Zach Moss is that kind of guy where I'm going to use the rest of my fab on him. But the guy that I like best of this crew is honestly Ty Chandler, just because Alexander Madison he's gotten the full workload in enough of these games and not looked great. And Ty Chandler, when he gets in there, looks pretty good. I personally think that when they sit back and they say, we're going to evaluate the quarterback position, we're going to evaluate a lot of positions, that maybe Ty Chandler is in a spot where he can start carving out a role for himself. There's not a lot of situations where these guys can even get to a 50-50 spot. So if Zach Moss isn't on the table, Ty Chandler's the one I want.
All right. Top 3 waiver wire ads at the wide receiver position here. Greg Dortch, Curtis Samuel, Jaden Reed. I feel like Jaden Reed is going to be everybody's darling here.
Yeah, and he should be because with Luke Musgrave out, here was the problem for Jaden Reed early on, is that it was Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs on the outside, and Jaden Reed played the slot. And when they went 2 wide receiver sets, with 2 tight ends, with Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave mixed in there, he was the odd man out. Well, with Luke Musgrave, literally has a lacerated kidney. So he's on IR. He's missing the next 3 games minimum, but I don't know how you come back and play with injured organs. So I think that it could be a situation where they just go 3 wide receiver sets rest of the season, in which case Jaden Reed's my favorite from that group. I'll also throw a little honorable mention to Greg Dortch. He passed one of the hurdles to potentially having a full-time role, in that Zach Pascal returned. Zach Pascal had kind of been filling in for Michael Wilson when he was out. Pascal played only like 6 snaps. So they looked at it and said, you know what? Dortch over Pascal. Now we just have to see what happens with Mike Wilson. But Greg Dortch, I mean, in the games he's played historically, he's been hot. If anything happens to Rondell Moore as well, he's the definitive backup for him. So a guy you got to keep an eye on in deeper leagues.
Yeah, he had like 9 targets 2 weeks ago. He got into the end zone this week. It's definitely it's an offense. The thing that I love about the return of Kyler Murray is that it really has turned around the passing game, and it has opened these guys up into being, intriguing depth receivers. Like when you're sitting here with 6 teams on a bye week, to know that you can kind of look and see, is Michael Wilson back? How does, Arizona's opponent match up against the slot? And will that make Rondell Moore a little bit more appeasable, right? I mean, that's what I like about, adding that in. So yeah, Dortch, as long as he's getting those snaps, definitely worthwhile there. All right, tight end whisperer Andrew Cooper. Here you go. Top waiver wire tight ends. Britt's got Pat Freiermuth, Tucker Kraft. You talked about Luke Musgrave being out. Tucker Kraft is his replacement. Tyler Higbee with the infamous 2-touchdown Higbee game that he throws in every so often, just so everybody can use all their fab on him to never see him get in the end zone again.
I can't do it, dude. We've been hooked and rug pulled by the Tyler Higbee. Because the thing is, he comes out and next game blocks on like 10 pass plays. So I can't do it there. I want to mention Isaiah Likely is the guy I like down the stretch, but he's on bye this week. The guy that you have to go for right now is Pat Freiermuth. And the reason being is this deep in the season, we need to have some sort of catalyst for change. If you look at the breakout stretch for Amon-Ra St. Brown, it wasn't just that, he was a rookie and had to get up to speed. It was that guys got hurt and they changed the play caller. And then they started using this guy in a new capacity, and they found out, wait a second, we have good players on this team and we should use them. And then for the rest of the year, and also for the rest of time, probably, Amon-Ra St. Brown's been awesome. Well, Pat Freiermuth has been awesome, and Matt Canada was just running all these crazy concepts from college and all these crazy things that weren't really working out. So they got rid of him and went back to the meat and potatoes. They looked around and said, who are our best players? Let's get them the ball. And Pat Freiermuth got 11 targets and 120 yards, not only led all tight ends, but all players in receiving yards this week. So when you have a performance like that tied to a catalyst for change, you got to go for that. And people will say, oh, well, you know what? It's because he played the Bengals and they're one of the stone worst defenses versus the tight end. Well, guess what? He gets to play the Bengals again in the playoffs, fantasy playoffs, week 16, right before championship week. So if you liked what you saw this week, you're going to see it again. So Pat Freiermuth, there it is. Pat Freiermuth, get him going.
All right. Well, there you go. Those are our top waiver wire ads at each position. Again, head over to fantasyalarm.com. Check out the waiver wire article from Britt Flynn. You will not be sorry. And you know what? I wanted to also, if you don't have a subscription to Fantasy Alarm, just throw out fantasyalarm.com. I'll tell you what. Yeah, try this first. Try this QR code. See if they didn't turn off the Cyber Monday promotion here. So it takes $100 off the annual, turns it basically to $16 a month instead of $40 a month. And it includes all the draft guides, cheat sheets, everything like that, all sports, DFS, seasonal, whatnot. Try out that QR code. There he is.
Burns.
Again. Burns. Don't make me bust out the baby picture.
You're fired.
All right. Before we get back to the chat and the full discussion here, just obviously want to shout out our good friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog, how come you haven't posted who your player of the week is? Who's our gimme player from Thursday Night Football? I'd like to see somebody from that. So listen, Underdog Fantasy, shout it out to them as well. Fantasyalarm.com/underdog. Use a promo code ALARM. It'll get you like an instant deposit match up to $100 on your first time deposit. Hit that QR code right there. So no gimme pick 'em yet. So you'll just have to wait a day or two here and see when they put your extra guy that increases your work. But because Coop and I are men of the people and we want to do right by a sponsor, we're going to give you a pick. So here you go. Coop,
Let's go,
where are you
baby.
going?
I'm going to lean right back into the narrative that I was alluding to a moment ago, that the Steelers went out, got rid of this, coach that they described as a guy that had all these complex concepts, that they really liked the way he was talking about things, but it was just with a quarterback that was a young guy and maybe he wasn't ready for that type of offense, that level of playing. So they fired Matt Canada and they brought in Eddie Faulkner and they simplified it. And Deontay Johnson came out and these guys basically said that, hey, you know what happened is we had a lot more freedom to let it loose, and we had a lot more freedom to play the way we wanted to play, just throwing it over the field, not doing all these crazy things. I mean, if you think about the Bears just yesterday with the amount of screens and trickery and stuff and all that, it's complicated things. So they took that away and said, hey, you know what? Throw it at Pat Freiermuth, throw it at Deontay Johnson, throw it at George Pickens, fire it around, and it worked. And they crushed, and he had 278 passing yards. This week, the number set at 214.5, which is what we probably would have seen in past weeks with the past play caller. With this play caller, I think they have the freedom to make things happen, and the matchup is against the Arizona Cardinals, where it's kind of a dealer's choice on how you want to score on this team. So give me Kenny Pickett 214.5 higher on that one.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I was actually working on the DFS watch list earlier this morning, and Kenny Pickett is there. I mean, we always talk about, it's so funny because teams that go up against Arizona, they run against them for sure, but they also throw against them. The only team that hasn't done that in recent memory are the Baltimore Ravens, right? That game where you thought Lamar was going to smash, but they just gave it to Gus Edwards, like, 3 touchdown game over there. That's like the only time that I've seen somebody not like just let their quarterback, have a little fun, sling the rock a little bit. So yeah, I like the Kenny Pickett call. I'm gonna go to Thursday Night Football here, and I'm gonna go with Tony Pollard higher than half a rushing and or receiving touchdown. And basically, just Tony Pollard gets into the end zone. Seattle Seahawks. I mean, even though they've added Leonard Williams to the to that front, defensive line, they're still struggling against the run. I mean, over 115 rushing yards per game, but 14 rushing touchdowns. So they're getting pushed around in short yardage situations. So you look at that 14 touchdown list. Please, I'll take Tony Pollard to get into the end zone. Dallas has been kind of balancing out their offense a little bit. We've seen Tony Pollard, actually do a little something there. So I'm just gonna kind of give a little nod to him here. So higher than half a touchdown.
Scored the last 2 weeks, baby. Let's go.
Shout out to our sponsors at Underdog Fantasy. There's the QR code. Zap that sucker, or just go to fantasyalarm.com/underdog. And then use that promo code ALARM for an instant deposit match up to $100. Coop, let's get back to the chat. Let's see what's going on. Who did I miss? Britt Flynn says I got to loosen my wrist a little bit when I'm doing the Tommy DeVito. All right. Thanks, Britt.
You've been out of New York. You've been out of the area for too long.
I know, right?
You got to get back to it. You got to get a bagel. You got to get a bagel in you, a slice of pie, and then you'll be right back, dude.
Amen, brother. Amen. The Dino Fontaine in here. Would you play Juwan Johnson or Taysom Hill over Sam Laporta? It's a hard no for me.
Yeah, that's going to be a no. Can't do it. I do like the idea of
I don't even know what the matchup is. And I'm saying
it doesn't matter. Yeah. I do like the idea of using Juwan Johnson if your tight end is Dalton Kincaid because he's on bye, right? Like this is a good spot because Dalton Kincaid.
Bring up Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid. How come every time Coop comes into this show, he's talking about Dalton Kincaid?
He's on bye. He's on bye this week. Sorry. If your tight end's TJ Hawkinson, who's on bye this week, go out, maybe use – is that better, right? Go out and use Juwan Johnson for this 1 week because they won't have Shaheed. They don't have Michael Thomas. They might not have Chris Olave, and he actually led the team in routes run and also got 7 targets last week. So for 1 week only, I like it, right? And honestly, Taysom Hill too, but you can't start him over Laporta, man. Laporta just got back to being the Laporta we know and love last week. Bunch of targets, scored a touchdown. What's not to like?
I don't know. I tend to think that people just overthink it. You start, you're sitting there listening. Like that's one of the things also that I tend to forget. And a lot of people who do broadcast tend to forget, like in the fantasy realm, that there are a lot more 10 team leagues out there. And, like 12 teamers that aren't as competitive is what we're looking for. So while we're looking for like the Greg Dortches of the world, these guys are all still like, I don't know. Should I start Mike Evans or Michael Pittman? Right. I've already got, Cooper Kupp in my lineup. Like, I mean, so I tend to forget that, we end up with stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it's like, so they hear like Juwan Johnson.
Yeah. I tweeted about him earlier, so that might have been.
Oh, see, there you go. So you ruined it, Coop.
I did ruin it. I'm sorry, but I will say this. I mean, in the leagues that I'm in, where it's the deep leagues that we talk about, Sam Laporta, even the quote unquote down weeks where he had back-to-back weeks with 5 targets and he caught 4 of them, it's like some of the leagues I'm in, dude, I'd claw your eyes out for 5 targets at tight end. You know what I'm saying? So it's all relative. It's all relative, like. With this stuff in deep leagues, like you don't ask those questions. But I guess I understand the point. But
that escalated quickly.
On fire today. Look at this, like sauce.
Getting aggressive. Sauce McFloss, baby. Let's go.
Right? Maybe that's what it is. There's a little Sauce McFloss. I feel like a little Annie Coop sass is coming through the baby Coop here.
You know what it is? My wife's friend came over, brought the baby, but also brought her dog. So before the shows today, my dog and their dog and me were out in the yard doing zoomies like crazy. So I came in with the zoomies today, baby. We were fired up, dude.
Nothing better than zoomies. I said to you, I
Nothing better.
texted it to you. The 1-1 of life.
101 of life, dude.
The
The dog zoomies.
101 of life is dog zoomies, no doubt about it.
We got the new fence, and I told all my friends with a dog, I was like, "Get your dog over here. We're taking this fence to the limit."
Dude, there's nothing better than just tiring your dog out. There's nothing better. It's so much fun. All right, back to business. Josh wants to know ETN or Eckler rest of season.
I personally go with ETN. Eckler, man. Rich Rebar, friend of the network over at Sharp Fantasy Football. He posted the stats, the rate stats for Austin Eckler, and he's like bottom. Not even kidding, bottom 5 in all of them, ranked 28th in all the important rate metrics, man. So not great for Eckler right now.
This is not an offense that caters to Austin Eckler and his skill set. That's
where did I hear that this offseason, Howard?
I don't know. I don't know. Oh, you know what?
Alarm something?
I think yeah. Fantasy Alarm.
Yeah.
Some dude did his top fades, right? Like Christian. I think Christian Watson was in there. Austin Eckler was in there. Jameer Gibbs. Jameer Gibbs is he's kind of gotten better, but you know what? I want to see the final product here because 3 really amazing games, smack dab in the middle of right? Even last week, Jameer Gibbs, what did he do in that game against Green Bay? It was there was nothing, anything special about it. There wasn't second round material.
And all the haters, man, it's we do those articles for the Fantasy Alarm members who care, who enjoy the information and care to have the information. But all the haters that were giving you trash for that, they never come back. They never come back and say, you know what, man? I think I see what you were talking about.
I've had a couple that actually have.
They pop in?
Definitely shout it out that there have been people. I mean, listen, I don't spar with people like my younger years when I was, vibrant and feisty.
I should smack you in the mouth.
I'd go back and forth with people. And now I'm listen, my opinion is my opinion. Your opinion is your opinion. If you ask me my opinion, I'm going to give it. Right. But I don't, I try to keep the peace amongst the world and, whatever. It's, to me, it's that.
That's totally just your opinion, man.
I've embraced your thoughts on that. And the best answer is because somebody some 6-month-old tweet, they're like, oh, what do you think now? I just say great call with an exclamation point. Yeah. And they're just they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do.
Right. Well, that's the thing. If you embrace it, they're just trying to get under your skin. I mean, whatever.
Well, I come from Reddit where they never come back and say sorry. If they're wrong, they delete. If they're wrong, they delete their account and they make another anonymous account. If they're right, if they're right, they find you your address and send you a physical card in the mail. With a Christmas picture of them being yeah, I got you, dude. It is that's the atmosphere over there. But I love Reddit, but that's the way it rolls.
Oh my God, that's too funny. Yeah. Too funny. All right, moving through here, through the chat. Let's see. Speaking of Robert Flores says, speaking of the cards, where do you guys think Hollywood Brown fits in? I know Howard had a terrible date with him a couple weeks. I did. That was the dating game, the fantasy dating game on Fantasy Alarm, and I ended up with Hollywood Brown, and he was atrocious. But to me, he's still a guy that's he's gonna sit on my bench. I'm not gonna start him right now. He's not an auto start, but he's a guy who, he's got history with Kyler Murray, and maybe it's just a matter of getting some, some rust taken off here for Murray's return. So I think Brown he's a hold. He's a stash. He's
a hold, yeah, for sure. But now the problem you run into with a guy like Brown is that he's the alpha on a team that desperately needs an alpha. They need a split end, and so when you look around, Marquise Brown's not a big player. But when he stands next to Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch, now all of a sudden he's the biggest guy in town. So he's going to get the toughest matchups. So down the stretch here, if Michael Wilson doesn't come back, playoffs, he's going to face 49ers. He's going to face, everyone watched Jalen Johnson last night for the Bears, who was problematic. And then week 17, he gets the Eagles. So like, that's been the problem for him. He's the best guy in town, and it makes defenses focus on him, and then they throw the ball elsewhere, right? Like, it's great for Trey McBride.
It's great for Trey McBride and Greg Dortch. As long as his value's still there, as long as he's only $3,300 on DraftKings.
Listen to this. He's 5'9", 180. He's the biggest wide receiver they have right now.
Hollywood is 5'9", 180, and he's the biggest on the team right now. Well, yeah, all right. So Wilson, when Wilson's healthy, Wilson's like
and that's why Zach Pascal was the question for Greg Dortch, because Rondale Moore is 5'7", and Greg Dortch is what? He's like 4 feet.
3'8".
How did you get underneath me on that
one? Too little? You said it was a good size.
He's also 5'7". Yeah, he snuck under me on that one. Yeah, so that's fine. Yeah, so right now, like he's got to play a role that he shouldn't be playing. So what are you gonna do?
All right, DM7819, Javonte Williams, James Conner, Zach Charbonnet needs 2 full point PPR. All right, are we start sitting here? What do we got? I'm like diving into the matchups here. No,
yeah.
I'll say this: none of these 3 guys popped in my research of like,
no.
Hey, I can't wait to get these guys on the field.
Yeah, you can run on Pitt though, so I think I'm gonna go with James Conner, and I did like what I saw from Williams. He bounced back a little bit in terms of receiving work. The week before was bad. This week he ran more routes than P. Ryan and Julio McLaughlin. So I think I'd go for the first 2. Who do the Seahawks have this week?
Seahawks have Dallas on Thursday.
Yeah. I think I'm going with Javonte and James Conner.
All right, Javonte and James Conner. I have for bye weeks options. He's got some guys on waivers. Maybe you like more than Connor and Javonte. Gibson, Dillon, Zach Moss.
Zach Moss is the one there. I think he gets Tennessee though, so I don't know if you even want to do that. But you got to be trying to add.
Javonte against Cleveland, is that going to be much better than Zach Moss against Tennessee?
Javonte has Cleveland this week.
Yeah, doesn't he?
No,
Rams. What week am I looking at?
Kyron, we're week 13.
I'm on the wrong freaking week. My bad.
You're good. Yeah, I don't know. You definitely but based on those running backs that you have, you should be throwing the bag at Zach Moss, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely be throwing the bag at Zach Moss. Definitely. Why am I missing it? Oh, there it is. Denver, Houston. Oh, yeah. Denver, Houston.
We can play with that. Yep.
We can definitely use that. Yeah. But yeah, I would see if you can get Moss. You might as well stash and see what happens. It's not a great matchup this week, but could be later on. Ooh, Locke's Bagel does sound good, doesn't it? Dortch over Devontae Parker from Mrs. Majors. Oh, yes. All day for me.
Everybody over Devontae Parker, man.
Oh, my Lord.
We don't know he did lead the team in snaps, but you can't trust him, man. Can't trust Devontae Parker.
What do you think of Justin Herbert rest of season? He struggles with good defenses and worried of his matchups with Denver.
I'm really concerned. We haven't had an update in a while, but Brandon Staley, the comments that he gave when they asked him about Josh Palmer were not. They were not like, oh yeah, 4 weeks and he'll be back. It was like we'll set 4 weeks for sure and we'll assess it at the time. I think Josh Palmer is the key for Justin Herbert because Quentin Johnston this week, they said he got nicked up and left the game. They specifically came out and said he was good to go and it was a coaching decision to bench him. That does not inspire confidence. If Josh Palmer doesn't come back, I don't know what the difference is between Justin Herbert and like Jared Goff and the rest of the middle of the pack guys,
Yeah, it's super unfortunate.
Right.
Super unfortunate. Doesn't even like raise the value. I mean, you're like, I'm more in on Gerald Everett, I guess. If that's if that's what it is, just brutal.
If you were to put together a highlight film of just from the snap until right before the ball gets to the wide receiver, Justin Herbert looks good. It's what happens next that's been the problem, right? Like these guys are just running the wrong routes. You can see how frustrated he's getting out there. Like it looks like Phillip Rivers all over again, where he's just temper tantrums and like yelling at fans. He hasn't been yelling at fans, but like, remember Rivers? He would get so mad. And I actually,
up, yeah.
Herbert's been getting, it's been pretty clear that he's upset with his options.
Yeah. What's the latest on Palmer? Like, I don't even know when he's eligible to return from IR. Is that a recent thing?
So
is it in the next week or two?
It's within the next 2 weeks, but there's been no update. He's not like no update on whether he's working out, and what it really did not sound.
That was the last I had heard was like, there's no promise of when he's returning.
It sounded like last time it sounded like not necessarily a when, but an if. And we forget a lot of times that for every guy that comes back, every Kyron Williams that comes back and he's awesome right away, there's a Jelani Woods that went on the 4-game IR 9 games ago. And where is he? You know what I mean? Like, so there's a very real possibility that they just said, let's put him on it just because we have the luxury to do so, but that he never comes back. So.
Oh boy.
That'd be bad.
All right. Coop, put your Twitch glasses up for this one. Ooh. Trade question.
Twitch gang, baby.
Coming out from Crossed RI or Crossed RL. I don't even know. Would you trade?
My guess would be he's a Rocket League player. It's a lot of RL. Rocket League, it's a
I know Rocket. It's soccer, but with cars. You got
it's
3
pretty
cars
cool.
And it's like a giant ball.
It's pretty cool. That game's a lot of fun.
Dummy man, I know somebody who's actually a nationally ranked Rocket League player.
Okay, I was gonna say because that game's really fun until you play against somebody who's really good, and then that knows how to like actually pass it. But like when it's like me and my sister and my brother-in-law playing, and we're just bumping stuff, it's like this is great. And then we play somebody that's like flying through the air, and we're like, all right, let's go play cards.
I'm done.
Let's play pitch.
Would you trade Jamar Chase for Isaiah Pacheco?
Yeah, absolutely. I am horrified at Jamar Chase. I mean, if you go back and watch the highlights in the game from this week, his biggest play was on a terrible throw that got tipped. I'm not even sure it was for him. Like the Nelson Aguilar catch where it was like he went above and beyond to make the play himself. So I am just really that team was so bad at moving the football this week. They only ran 43 snaps, which I do the snap count articles. That's of all the games we've had so far, of all the teams, I think that's the 3rd lowest we've seen all year. 43 snaps is nothing. The Bills this week ran 95.
Just to put it in perspective right there. Yeah. All right. Beautiful. You know what? I've got somebody just tweeted at me here a minute ago, so I might as well just throw this at you here because it kind of goes into what we were talking about earlier on here in the show. Is Thielen droppable at this point? Was thinking of dropping him to pick up Jaden Reed.
Oh, so that's the thing
that's a tight one, right?
That's a tight one. I was so ready to say no until you said a player I love. But the thing is, I can't drop any of the Panthers players. Put it this way: I'm trying to grab Panthers players wherever I can. Thielen, Mingo, and then either of the running backs. Forget the tight ends. Forget Chark. Forget anybody of these guys. Terrace Marshall. And hold them for this week because a couple of them could be unlocked by new play calling and new decision making, and a couple of them could become instantly very droppable, right? So I would hate to drop a guy this week before the big changes come. The problem for Thielen, of course, is that you don't want changes if you have Adam Thielen, right? You want what they've been doing. So because of that, I'm going to hold for one more game just to see. But because we never know. Again, you could have a situation where the whole team is just rejuvenated by this move.
All right, definitely something to watch. We're going to be covering all of this stuff fantasyalarm.com. We'll see what happens with the movement here in Carolina. Obviously, we're going to look and see, what else gets unlocked in Pittsburgh. Do they live up to their word that George Pickens is going to get the extra work now, that Jaylen Warren is as well? It's a tough spot. I mean, that's just the stuff that we kind of go through over and over. Coop, tell everybody what content you got coming up here over the next. Well, I know you got a buttload of stuff coming out today.
Yeah.
So let's
Today's
roll
the big
through it
day.
here. Tell everybody, give everybody your schedule, Coop. Tell them what you got to do this week.
Yeah, dude. So starting with yesterday, I know.
I'm gonna
dude,
crack that whip as your boss here.
The thing is with it is that like the stuff I do is stuff that I would do anyway. Like it's how I know what the heck's going on. So yesterday we did Coop Scoops. That's going to have the breakdown of all the usage, all the snaps. That video is up, Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco is up right now on the YouTube channel. That will get you up to speed on everything. If you don't like watching the video, the snap count article comes out tomorrow, right? Yesterday, I did my league winners kind of take, so that article's already up. Today, yin and yang tight end. And since I have a little extra time, I'm going to rank every single player at every single position in every format, half PPR, full PPR, and standard, right? Wednesday snap counts and quick outs is going to be 1 o'clock. 2 o'clock, it's going to be you and me again, talking about Simple Jack again, or whatever the heck we do, whatever the heck it is we do on this show. Right?
It's so far we've got the Simple Jack reference. Here you go, Brian Burns, bringing the heat here. It's pretty much the exact same thing.
So whatever we do, yeah. Good job, Burns. It's the same picture. Yeah, so what?
Ooh, on fire again today.
Yeah. So then Thursday we're gonna have Alarm Fantasy Football, my DFS tight end article, and then obviously we answer every question right before the game. And Friday we're gonna have a guest on Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco. And because the Texans are so hot right now, I had to get a Fantasy Alarm G on. So Colby Conway is gonna come on. And we're going to talk some Texans. Yeah, so going to be a good week, Howard. What do you got going on, buddy?
Not much, man. I'm just going to be sitting there chilling on the couch, eating bonbons.
Just chilling.
I got nothing going
texting
on.
Me, being like, "Where's that article, dude?" Now, what do you got? What do I got?
I got SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Hey, listen, if you do like a little fantasy baseball on today's show, Steve Phillips, former GM, going to join me in the GM. We've got winter meetings coming up next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So we're going to just kind of splash a little MLB work into today's show. But we're covering all the waiver wire stuff, taking phone calls, you name it, everything over on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio.
Otani watch in baseball is officially on.
Probably going to be on the Otani watch. We're going to cover, I don't even know, everything. I'm more concerned. I want to know about Juan Soto and looking good in Yankee pinstripes.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's just me. In any event, SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, as Coop said, Alarm Fantasy Football. I'm here. I'm on, I'm on the Fantasy Alarm YouTube page all the time. I'm on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio 6 days a week. Come find me there. All the written work over at fantasyalarm.com for all the DFS stuff. And then I don't know, just for shits and giggles, just read me in the New York Post Tuesdays and Saturdays. If you're feeling froggy, let's jump.
I love it.
Me too. Shout out to Brian Burns.
I love and respect Brian Burns, and he's got to do what he's got to do.
Yeah. Before we jump, just want to recap because we had another one person in the chat may miss the beginning of the show. Jonathan Taylor news. For our understanding from the beat writers close to it, they said it's a legitimate injury, which to me suggests ligaments. And the guy that reported that said IR is on the table. So I think regardless of what comes out, keep close to it. But Zach Moss, top waiver claim this week for anybody. Not just if you need a running back, but you got to block people from getting Zach Moss. If you remember what Zach Moss did earlier this year, could be a Kyron Williams situation all over again. So keep an eye on that.
There you go. That's it in a nutshell here. Appreciate everybody for tuning in here to Alarm Fantasy Football. Coop and I will be back again tomorrow, same time. He's going to double duty it again with quick outs and then right here, Alarm Fantasy Football Appreciate you all tuning in here, liking and subscribing and all that fun stuff. For Andrew Cooper, I'm Howard Bender. We'll catch you next time.